Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Reedinger, and over the past several weeks, I've been speaking with many alumni about their experiences when they were here at the University of Akron, and now that they are in the professional world. Today, I'm here with Alex Bilchak. Alex, thank you for sitting down with me.
Sure.
So, my first question for you is, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So currently I serve as the Deputy Chief of Staff for State Auditor Keith Faber. I worked in the Senate when Keith Faber was the Senate President, and after a while on the official side in communications, I left to go be the political director for the Republican Senate Campaign Committee, which Keith helped me transition into that position. When Keith was elected to statewide office, he asked me if I would serve as his director of transition, and having a good experience in that capacity, he asked me if I would be willing to stay on as a deputy chief of staff. So this was a little different for me this cycle because I was entirely on the government side as opposed to serving in a political capacity. But as deputy chief of staff, I oversee external affairs. So anytime you're working for an elected official, there's always, even though it's not a political position, there's inherently an undertone of politics as it relates to the relationships the elected official has to have with local stakeholders. So that's one of the responsibilities I have here, is to ensure that those stakeholder relationships are always on the up and up.
And so it sounds like you climbed the ladder of up to where you are now. But looking back on the beginning, how did you decide on the University of Akron and then to eventually study politics?
Sure. I was a political science major at Youngstown State University, so just down the road, just down 76, I suppose, from the University of Akron. And I had a great experience there. I had a really great staff. Dr. Bill Binning, who's actually, he was the chairman of the political science department there and is actually a head of government relations for them now, helped steer me towards some political activity while I was living in the Mahoning Valley. But, for the purposes of disclosure, I'm a Republican. Generally, when you're a Republican operative, you can only work for Republicans. There's not a lot of those in the Mahoning Valley, or there weren't a lot at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I found my way to Columbus. I actually started working with the Taft administration all the way back in 2005 and had a great experience there. I was in positions that were inherently less political, but over time I decided I really wanted to get back into the political realm. I wanted to work on campaigns again. And so when you're 10 years into your professional career and you're doing well, it's kind of a risk to take to decide, I'm going to just put the safe, steady government job on the shelf and go for politics. And so I did a lot of research on how I wanted to approach that. I had previously interned in Washington, D.C. with the Committee on House Administration, so I thought about going back there. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I was already married, so my wife had a good career here in Columbus as well. So I wasn't in a position just to lift up and go to D.C. So I had to take into consideration what resources were available to me here in Ohio. And overwhelmingly, I got good feedback from people on Cap Square about the Masters of Applied Politics program at Akron. And I did a little research, and I found a guy who teaches there as an adjunct named Mark Weaver. Mark is he's an old political warhorse. And what I'd come to find out was he had worked for Ronald Reagan. Now, Ronald Reagan was president when I was a little boy. So for me, this was a big deal to be able to work with someone who worked for Ronald Reagan. And so sight unseen, I applied for the program. I never came up to visit Akron, never talked to any faculty. I applied for the program, got in, and I actually did the program remotely from here in Columbus. But the one teacher that they had in Columbus was Mark Weaver. So I took all of his classes up front, interned with him, and he helped transition me out of government back into the political world. But, it's easy to say, once I met Mark, I should have just walked away from the academic program. And that's not the case. I learned a great deal from Bliss and the Bliss professors, the connections that I made there with not only other people who worked on Cap Square, but students who I'm in touch with now have proven invaluable. So overall, I mean, I wouldn't have the ordinary transition from career to school back to career, but it's one that worked for me. And it was people who were affiliated with the Bliss Institute who have really looked out for me and helped put me where I am today.
So you talked a good bit there about how you got to Akron and then how what you did there helped you lead into political success, and then also about Mark Weaver. But were there any other specific classes or internships or professors that you think made an impact on you and helped you get into the professional world?
Yeah, without a doubt. At Akron, Dr. Brooks, Dr. Green, Dr. Coffey, and I'm leaving people off, just, it eludes me at the moment, but I really can't say that there was any professor who I took the class and said, well, that was a real waste of my time. Everything impacted me. Everything. I'll put it to you this way. It was money well spent. Someone once told me, this was years after I'd gotten out of Akron. They asked why I took this route. I said, well, I wanted to have class with Mark Weaver. And they said, you should have just called him. You should just call him and say, hey, I want to learn from you. He'd have saved you, whatever, $16,000. I don't think that's the case. It wasn't just the interaction with Mark. That was opening the door. But all the people I interacted with at Akron, all the professors, the staff, the other students, that's proven invaluable. A guy actually who graduated at the same time as I did with his master's of applied politics is now in India running campaigns. He texted me yesterday and said, hey, I want to hear what's going on with you. What are you working on? Here's an app that I've created that we're using for voter contact in India. Very different political system than we have. So to be able to walk away from a program that I did remotely, spent, I was in Akron a few days for classes, but most of it I did here in Columbus, and walk away with global connections in addition to the solid bedrock of the connections I have here in Columbus, absolutely invaluable.
And so you obviously talked a good bit there about what you've done since, but when you were there, when you were in college, what is one of the best memories that you have of your time at the Bliss Institute?
Oh, geez. It's tough to say. I was working, I was already working campaigns at the time. So I was working 40 to 60 hours a week at any given time. I was a new father. I was in a, relatively new career field in that capacity. And so I can't say that there was any one really special memory, but I look back at the collective period and say that was an awesome experience. The entire thing collectively was a great experience, and it's largely due in part to the great staff that they have at the Bliss. Somebody was always looking out for me. Everyone was available, approachable. I think I got through the program in roughly 18 months, just under 2 years. It was done in the blink of an eye. So for me to say that there was any one really special experience, I think that would sell short the collective experience and all the hard work that the staff and the professors put into the program.
Absolutely. And then my last question for you here is, what would you say to someone that is currently studying political science, or to someone that's considering going into politics in the future?
Well, there's a lot of things I would say, but just to get the ball rolling, it's a field that's based upon connections, and it's not an old boys club by any means. There are a lot of great people in this field. It's a very diverse field. You can't pigeonhole yourself and use stereotypes to say, well, if I want to do this, I have to look like this, be of this party. You can really do whatever you want. The key, though, is hard work. At the end of the day, if you want to work in the political profession, if you want it to be a business for you, you have to treat it like it's a business. It's never personal. You can't put too much emotion into what you do. We're not advocates. We're not zealots. We're political professionals. This is a data-driven business. When we make decisions on behalf of a candidate, we make them because the data indicates that this is the best thing for you. So if you think this is a field you're going to get into and put your emotion into, that's okay. But at the same time, you always have to treat it like a business. So that's the first thing I would say.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alex,
Absolutely.
for sitting down with me. My name is Jack Reedinger, and I am interning at the Bliss Institute this semester. And over the next several weeks, I'll be talking with alumni about their experiences when they were at the Bliss and now in the professional world. Alex, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jack.